had to make it a better world, where would you begin?
How do we create a better world of energy?
And ask, instead of talking about ways to make dirty energy cleaner, natural gas simply is cleaner. It's a
I believe
refreshing
natural
look at
gas
what
can be the
America's
driving
energy
force
can
for
and
how
should
Congress
be.
can take
Where we
bold
create our own
action,
energy
free our
that moves
country
us
from the
forward
death
now.
grip of high prices
Instead of
for
talking
imported
about
oil,
ways to make
thereby
dirty
improving our
energy
economy,
cleaner,
enhancing
natural
national
gas
security,
simply is
and
cleaner.
helping the environment.
It's a
This is an
refreshing look at
absolute
what America's
blessing
energy
that
can
we have been
and
able to
should
unlock
be.
this
Where we
resource.
create our own
Wir haben die
energy,
Technologie,
our
diese
wealth,
Vorkommen
jobs,
sicher und
and
verantwortungsvoll zu
We're
nutzen.
entering a golden age of natural gas right now.
I mean, we could produce enough oil and gas so that we wouldn't have to be dependent upon the Middle East to run this machine called America.
Well, this is the American dream personified.
Today we shake the sleep from our eyes and turn our focus to new solutions. We're standing on top of the world's largest supplies of natural gas.
Absolutely critical for Europe's energy security.
Potential.
Natural gas is
we really have a wonderful
opportunity and clearly
to create
vital.
a brand new
ExxonMobil is
industry
applying
that
new technologies
up
right
until
here
now
in
we
Europe
didn't know
to access gas
where the people of the Karoo, the country, and indeed rural Dutch shale can extract energy, environmental, and economic benefits.
Nothing less than the survival of the American way of life is at stake.
Natural gas is the gateway to a better world of energy.
Deep below the Earth's surface, tucked between layers of rock, lie hydrocarbons that form the main components of the coal, gas, or petroleum, providing the energy that people consume in their daily lives. The latest arrival of these fossil fuels is that of natural gas from unconventional sources. The drilling advancement started out west in the United States, and now energy companies are looking elsewhere. From South America to Europe, from Australia to here in South Africa, in a semi-arid region at the heart of the country, an area known as the Karoo. This latest complex drilling method has also brought widespread controversy. One of the main concerns is the impact drilling could have on water. Aside from depleting resources, there are fears that gas extraction could contaminate underground supplies with the methane gas itself or the chemicals used in the drilling operation.
Prior to the drilling, I had a pre-drill sample water test done, and my water came back. It was flawless.
All of us here on Carter Road have problems with our well water because of the gas well drilling.
Everybody's sick. We don't know what we're sick from.
We are officially listed with DEP as a high explosive level due to the methane level, which is at 64 milligrams per liter.
So they came and tested the water, and we have major concentrations of a chemical called glutaraldehyde in our water, which is one of the main chemicals used in the frac solution.
However, these fears are dismissed by a claim often used in the sales pitch for shale gas development.
Hydraulic fracturing.
Hydraulic fracturing.
Method used for drilling natural gas.
They call the process fracking. Water and chemicals under pressure break up rock to get to the elusive natural gas supply it holds. It's a process that's been used for 60 years.
Fracking is a technology that's been around for about 60 years. Basically, you're injecting into deep wells water under high pressure with sand to crack open rocks to release hydrocarbon molecules like oil and natural gas.
The use of hydraulic fracturing was near Duncan, Oklahoma, in my state, Oklahoma. That was way back in 1949.
Fracking has got a very long history because it was certainly used in anger back in the 1940s to stimulate oil production.
It's been around over 50 years, and we do approximately 35,000 wells a year, nearly 1 million wells, without one documented case of groundwater contamination.
60 years to be able to use this thing that is called hydraulic fracturing in more than 1.1 million wells just in the US of A alone.
The industry will tell you they've been fracking for 60 years, so what they're doing is just a little wordplay there.
The apologists will tell you that this is
that the people have been fracking wells for 80 years or 100 years, and they frack, hundreds of thousands of wells and whatnot. But that's totally misleading.
This process that is being used for extracting gas from tight shales is drastically different from the conventional processes. You'll hear people say that it's a process that has been used for 60 years, and parts of it have, but not to this magnitude. This is a major step change.
Yes, there's an element of truth that hydraulic fracturing is a well-known technology that's been used millions of times, but the particular form of hydraulic fracturing that we're talking about here has only been in use for about a decade. It began to be developed in the 1990s. It was, quote, perfected in a particular shale formation in Texas in the late 1990s. And to date, there have only been about 20,000 shale gas wells developed using the kind of hydraulic fracturing that we're talking about. In particular, slick water, high volume hydraulic fracturing from what are called long laterals or sub-horizontal wells. That's a technology that was not around in the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s. The experiment started in the 1990s, and it's only now coming into its own. So there's not 60 years of experience with this particular form. There's not millions of wells of experience. There's roughly a decade of experience in about 20,000 wells in roughly 4 or 5 major plays around the world.
If this stuff was proven and time tested, they wouldn't have been experimenting with atomic bombs up until the 70s.
There are very substantial differences. It's not just scaling up the logistics.
It's less than a decade old.
First, I want to ask all three of you in response. Do any one of you know of one case of groundwater contamination that has resulted from hydraulic fracturing? Start with you, Mr. Silver.
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Mr. Giles?
I understand there's some anecdotal evidence, but I don't know that it's been firmly
So the answer is no, you don't know of it. All right, Mr. Larson?
I'll have to respond in writing. I'm not aware of all of our studies on that topic.
Well, but you've already answered. You're not aware of it. That's the question I asked you. Mr. President.
Senator from Oklahoma.
No evidence that the hydraulic fracturing at issue has resulted in any contamination or endangerment of underground sources of drinking water.
Any fear of retributions or reprisals is that up until today, 800,000 wells later, there's not a single person who has come up with evidence to say this is attributable to just shale.
We've been doing 100,000 of these wells a year for many, many years. The technology has been around for 60 years. Basically, the technology is safe as far as we can tell. How much more study is really required?
No proven cases of contamination flies in the face of allegations by many critics, but the uncertainty.
What the companies are thinking of in their mind when they say hydraulic fracturing hasn't caused anything is they mean the actual activity of the completion down at 4,000 feet or whatever. I think what a lot of the public is thinking is they think hydraulic fracturing is the whole thing. It's the drilling of the well, it's the casing of the well, it's the completing of the well, it's all of that. So if that's your context, then I can understand why they would say, you're not telling me the truth, because we do know that in Wyoming and in Colorado and in Ohio and in Northeast Pennsylvania and in West Virginia, there have been evidences of gas migration contamination, and it wasn't there before you guys started drilling, so don't tell me it's a coincidence.
The fracking process itself, the regulations involving the actual fracking process, in my opinion, don't need much more than what are already there, because that's the process that has the least likelihood, not zero, but the lowest probability of causing problems.
It's virtually impossible for the fracking itself to cause the gas migration, but it is very possible for you to have gas migration associated with the drilling operations if you don't get the casing and the cementing right. Every one of those cases which we identified where the claim was this is due to hydraulic fracturing and the industry is saying no, it's not hydraulic fracturing, can't do it. Truth is right here in the middle, and the truth is it was tied to drilling operations, it was because they had bad cement jobs, and that gas leaked up into the annulus until the pressure built up enough that it leaked out and it went up into the aquifers.
I'm more concerned with everything at the surface. The closer you are to the surface, the closer you are to humans. The closer you are to the surface, the closer you are to groundwater. During the drilling process, you're close to the surface because you're at the surface doing the drilling, and you're at the surface with the chemicals that are necessary to do the drilling, and it's near the surface where the problems with gas migration are occurring, not 4,000 or 5,000 meters down where the shale is.
I thought I chose my words very carefully to say.
Yes, but it all comes down to how you ask the question.
Is there any evidence that hydraulic fracturing, however, can affect aquifers and water supplies?
There is evidence that it can certainly affect them. I am not aware of any proven case where the fracking process itself has affected water, although there are investigations ongoing.
As we see it today, we have not had a single documented case where somebody has come to us and said, it's as a direct result of your specific hydraulic fracturing activity.
This was a documented case that the DEP documented, and it was an official case. It was acknowledged. However, now it is under wrap because of the non-disclosure agreement. The methane that was found in the aquifer was thermogenic methane that was coming from the shale layer, because there was obviously a failing in the well casing. So, are there any documented cases that natural gas drilling for unconventional gas, because that includes well casing and all that, hydraulic fracturing, as I have it, only refers to the process when the perforation takes place.
I thought I chose my words very carefully to say documented cases that shows the direct causal effect between the activity, the contamination, and hydraulic fracturing. I thought that's what I said. But if you talk about mining in general, of course, there are lots of documented cases. But I think let me also move forward very quickly to say,
one case, documented case of groundwater contamination.
There's not a single person who has come up with evidence.
There's never been a documented case in almost.
My name is and I live in Wellsboro, Pennsylvania. My parents' property is located right next to a pad that is operated by Shell, and our property has been contaminated by diesel fuel, by sediment from poor excavation, and also with thermogenic methane into our water well. And that is the situation that we are currently living through. I would also say that we have pre-tests to show that our property was not contaminated before Shell came here.
One of the big obstructions that I have found for investigations of any issues that come up with natural gas drilling is that many of them seem to get covered very quickly by mutual non-disclosure agreements. So if someone who lives near a gas or oil well operation complains that their water has been impacted, their air has been impacted, their kids are getting sick when they were never sick before, usually the first people who come in to offer help is the nearby energy company themselves. And they will undertake to provide clean water for that family, typically either in the form of a water treatment system or a water buffalo out in the front yard. But it always comes at a cost, and that cost is, in order to accept that gift, the company will accept, of course, no culpability. They're just doing this, of course, out of the goodness of their hearts as good neighbor companies. But the family has to sign a mutual non-disclosure agreement. So one of the offshoots of these kinds of agreements is that it's not possible after that for people to go in and question the family members or the involved company people about the details of the case. And this includes county health departments and the state regulatory apparatus. So all investigations stop when a mutual non-disclosure agreement gets signed. This has been one of the greatest obstacles to keeping anyone honest, because the companies will say, we don't have any documented evidence. The state agencies will say, none of these things have come to our attention. And the fact of the matter is there have been lots and lots of incidents. But the investigators have been stopped at the door by a legal mechanism of a non-disclosure agreement.
Minnaar, 1 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 Minnaar,
Well, you know, the only thing I can't really talk about that now. I mean, I don't really want to comment on that, Jolynn. That whole discussion, that's really a discussion I'm not comfortable. I'm not going to make any comment to you about anything regarding that company, any sorts of environmental concerns. Nothing. I'm not making any comment about any of that. Period.
This is rampant across not only the country but the world. And it's one of the biggest problems we have in developing really sound and good information. We actually have people who have gone around and actually counted the water buffaloes in people's front yards in gas drilling field areas. And in areas where there are no documented instances of issues, we have more than 200 water buffaloes in people's front yards. But no official way of determining how that happened.
To date, we know of 81 wells that are contaminated in the area, but I know it's much larger because, in fact, I have records of people who don't want to come forward at this time. The contamination is much greater than people are saying. Some of the people come forward and some of them don't.
Have a contaminated well after natural gas drilling in the area. We have been contaminated since September 11th of 2008, and it's been going almost 3 years now. We've been living like this with a contaminated well. We didn't think anything about it. Nobody ever forewarned us of what could happen. They told us, you won't even know that we were here. We'll be in and out, you'll see a little Christmas tree, boom, and we'll be done. That's all it'll be. And, you know, so we decided to sign a lease because now, looking back on it, I know all the problems they had out west. Why didn't those people ever warn us? It's because probably they signed gag orders or something, they couldn't talk. Now, if they would have signed or talked to people, maybe things would be different than they are right now here in Dimick or the other places.
I worked in the oil and gas industry. I didn't have a problem with putting a well down on my property. But I was the one that figured out that they were doing horizontal drilling. They wouldn't tell me. No one told me. But do you think that I would have signed a lease if I would have known that they had the exemptions in place in 2005? I signed a lease in 2002. They started drilling in 2005. They got the exemptions passed in 2005 to be exempt from the Clean Air and Clean Water and Safe Drinking Water and the Right to Know and Superfund Act. That's like me putting my family on top of a landfill. Well, let's just live on top of a landfill. I would not do that. I wouldn't want anyone to have to live like that.
They lie to you. If they'd tell you the truth, you wouldn't sign the lease. That's how they are. They don't tell you the truth. They're not truthful people. Yeah. They just tell you whatever they want you to hear. That's how they work. Yeah. So, and the money, what money they give you isn't worth it, because you need the water more than the gas. Water's more important than anything. And like I have had a small time farm, right at 58 acres. That farm's useless. No water on it. You don't farm anymore with no water on a farm. All gas wells affect the water tables, which I found out. And everybody says, oh, it's not harmful to the water. All the gas industry says that, which I did find out it is harmful and it kills the animals, because I lost 10 calves and a cow, within a few months after they drilled, because they polluted the water. So I know it's dangerous. And whatever chemicals they're using, it affects the animals. And down the road, the way it affected the animals, I think it's going to affect the people more.
I was sick a lot. I was getting a lot of headaches and dizziness and just didn't feel well, you know, and people would come and visit us. This is after they had the gas wells drilled and the production had started. And the tanks out here were venting and there was fumes and it was just a nasty odor, and it kind of burnt your eyes and made you sick. But when I go inside, I thought, well, I'll be all right indoors, you know. So I'd stay in there, but, you know, I'd wake up in the morning and I'd wake up with a headache. Couldn't figure out why. That just kept going on and on and on. And then finally in 2009, I think it was, when Norma Ferrantino's well blew up, they came around and they checked people's homes. And we had gas in our home from coming in with the water. That's when we found out we had gas in the house and in the water. How this can be allowable. How they can do this and get away with it. And there's no one trying to fight for us. We have no one to call on and say, hey, you need to do something for us. You have to do something for us. So that, how are we supposed to exist this way? I had a deposition for this lawsuit, and I told them down there, I said, you know, this is supposed to be our golden years. They say when you get older, it's your golden years. It's not.
I was in upstate New York last week coming back from Vermont, and I just found myself feeling, if you look at these poor communities, and a lot of them they were rich dairy farms 100 years ago that have gone downhill, gone out of business, there's no industry, and I just think these people are so such easy targets for this business. I just felt like I wanted to get out of my car and say, don't let them come here, don't let it happen to you, you know, everything that you value, every reason you live here, you know, keep that in mind. And maybe in the long run it will become impossible to live here. I hope not. No, that's certainly not my plan, but it is a potential reality, I guess.
How would you feel if you had to leave your home that's been in your family for 6 generations?
I can't imagine doing it.